Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cousins Cut podcast. As you can see, solo vid again, this time for me. No Jaden here today. And that is because I've come to talk to you guys about modern classics versus all time classics. I was kind of just, with how good 2026 cinema has been, it got me thinking about like what movies are going to turn into just some all time classics. So I'm here to kind of compare them, talk about what makes a classic, what's going to become a classic, and I think it should be a nice little video. So to kind of start, I want to just get into what makes an all-time classic. You know what kind of movies I'm talking about. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey, 12 Angry Men, Back to the Future, repping it, favorite movie of all time. So what I kind of determined are just factors of all these all-time great movies, all these all-time classics, is you got to have that longevity factor. You got to impact the industry, impact the culture at the time. Obviously something like 2001: A Space Odyssey impacted the industry. It was 1968 when that came out. You still don't see visuals like that today sometimes. It just whole new way of filmmaking. Brilliant, right? Brilliant. Versus culture, something like Star Wars. 1977, whole new fan base grew for sci-fi like that. So has to be one or the other, impact the industry, impact the culture. And in my opinion, an all time classic should still be able to hold up today. Maybe not the effects, maybe not, just the way it sounds, because you can kind of tell it's an older movie sometimes, but the movie itself has to hold up today, right? Kind of like a 12 Angry Men, it's shot in black and white. The audio's good, right? Nothing exceptional, but it's good. But obviously it holds up today because the story is just phenomenal, right? Phenomenal. And then last but not least, it's obviously got to be a good movie. You're not going to be considered an all-time classic if you're just some bummy movie. So again, like some movies I kind of picked out just to fill this: 2001: A Space Odyssey, 12 Angry Men, Jaws, Star Wars, The Godfather, Back to the Future, Psycho, A Fistful of Dollars, Good, Bad, The Bad, and the Ugly. All those types of movies, all-time classics, right? It kind of changes now when you want to talk about modern classics. Because in my opinion, it is way harder now to become a modern classic and instead of just a good movie from that era, right? So I think for a movie now to be considered a classic or be on its way to becoming an all-time classic, you kind of have to be either the best of your genre, at least in a couple of years, or you need to be new and original to the genre. You know, something like Obsession, I think you'll go down in history well because it's finally something fresh. It's not just something that we've seen 1,000 times before. It's something new. It's something refreshing, right? Versus something like Dune, very similar to something like Star Wars, but it's just that good, So it has that potential to become an all-time classic. Uh, I also think another factor for a modern classic to happen needs to be just how it's perceived by the media already. Obviously, 2026 now, there's never going to be anything that's unanimously liked, but it's got to be at least well regarded by the media, especially like in the film industry. It needs to be well regarded. But I think now more than ever, just social media, you also need that factor of just the general public likes it. And I think the perfect example of this just came out a month ago, The Odyssey. Okay, like obviously this movie has very easily potential to just become an all-time classic, a film that 30 years from now people will just look back on and just go, yeah, like this is a phenomenal movie to still to this day. And I mean that kind of leads into my next point now. There needs to be a longevity factor for here as well, but not in the sense that it's been around, in the sense that it will stay around, it will stick around. Third, again, like I just said, 30 years down the road, are people going to look at this movie and go, you know what? Yeah, this is a phenomenal movie. and it stayed that way 30 years later. Interestingly enough, I'm not going to use 2025's Oscar winner to describe that. I think a movie like One Battle After Another is going to be one of those movies where you kind of just go, yeah, it was good. It was the Oscar winner for that year, but that's how it's memorable. I think you take away that Oscar win, and it would go down in history as just, here's a good movie, right? Not an all time classic. Then, last but not least, very similar, well, the exact same to an all time classic. It's got to be a good movie, right? If it's not a good movie, no chance you're getting regarded as an all time classic, a modern classic, whatever. So, those are kind of the terms I've set for this now, but what I really wanted to do is kind of compare them and figure out what's better. Are the new movies that we're getting, the modern classics, actually better movies, or are these all time classics just always going to stand alone? You know, like I'd say just in the 2020s, 2019 to 2026, we've gotten some unbelievable movies. I already mentioned something like Obsession, which I think is just new, fresh, will go down well. Odyssey, obviously, going to go down well. The Dune movies, already being well received, and if Dune 3 is a banger, like we're all expecting it to be, I do think this could go down as one of the best trilogies of all time. You know, I'm a Star Wars guy, it's in the back there, but you got to respect the Dune movies too. Then, obviously, like Sinners. Sinners is a damn good movie, and I'm willing to bet it's going to go down as an all time classic because it meets all the criteria I just checked off. So, I just want, oh, Spider-Verse as well. Obviously, got to throw those in. But these are just the movies that, you know, will just turn into these all time classics. But that's why we have the term modern classic. It's not there yet, but it has all the right things for it. So I wanted to starting to just get in and compare all time classics to the modern classics and see how they hold up and if modern classics are just better, you know? And I think the easiest way to kind of look at this is probably the most interesting one too, probably going to be the thumbnail for this video, is 2001 A Space Odyssey versus Interstellar. Obviously, like two juggernauts in their genre, in the sci-fi genre, and it, like, they're the perfect two movies to compare for this. Obviously, both of them meet all the criteria that we kind of listed at the start of the video for what is going to be better. And there is honestly no clean way to, I think, compare them. If you go by visuals, people are going to hate me for saying this, but Interstellar is better. I think pretty objectively, Interstellar is just better. Like, they rendered a black hole that's used for science and researchers and physicists today. Like, it's insane. Some of the cinematography that we get, insane. Not to discredit Kubrick, because again, that was made before the moon landing, and we have all these great images of space and everything, some transcending sequences. But what are you going to do when the technology just develops better? You know, Nolan just had more resources, more technology to make it look better. And also, I think plot wise, Interstellar does just blow it away. Not to say that 2001 is bad. I already know I'm going to get comments coming at me for that. But when you get a 15-minute opening sequence of the evolution of primates and everything, it is tough to sit there and watch sometimes. Okay, I get very important for the movie. It hits the theme perfectly. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that 2001 is better to watch than Interstellar, losing your mind. Okay? But this is the perfect example because without 2001, no Interstellar. That simple. In fact, not a lot of the sci-fi genre would happen without 2001: A Space Odyssey. So when you're comparing to say what's actually better, like, it's tough because I think as a movie, me personally, I'd rather watch Interstellar 1,000 times over. But how important it is, and maybe objectively better as a movie, you might have to lean towards 2001 because again, like, Kubrick created all this. This wasn't done before him. The visuals, the just looks of everything, the way it sounds, the actual sci-fi story. Nothing like that happened before. And obviously, it's narratively still a good story and whatever. The themes of it on point. So you can give a point to 2001 there, but you also just can't deny it. Filmmaking came a long way in the 40, 50 years that took place in between 2001 and Interstellar. Interstellar is just the better movie, the way it looks, the way it sounds, the way it's written. So, like, what do you do here? Do you respect the OG for kind of paving the way? Or do you acknowledge that, okay, take out the iconicity, Interstellar is better, right? And you could say that with like tons more of these movies. Like, again, Wizard of Oz versus Spirited Away, a little bit unfair. One's animated, one isn't. Wizard of Oz, in the 40s this time now, or 30, whatever it was. Brilliant movie for when it came out. The fantasy, the adventure, unreal. But then you go to Spirited Away, everything just looks fantastic. The score, the looks, the sound, the story, all unbelievable. And it's just like, it's hard. You can't tell me that you go watch that movie, then go watch Wizard of Oz and say that objectively, Wizard of Oz is the better movie. But do you get Spirited Away without Wizard of Oz? I don't think so. You need those important movies. You could say that about all of these different comparisons, right? One of my favorite that in researching this kind of video came up was a movie like Psycho, right? Come on. Like Hitchcock, come on. Classic, right? But then you go to Get Out, Jordan Peele. And is it crazy to say that Get Out is just the better movie? I don't think so. Is Psycho one of one, original, unbelievable for the time? Unbelievable to this day because the twist and all the shots, the score, obviously. Yes, it's unbelievable. But I just don't think you can, in good heart, in good faith, say that Get Out isn't the better movie. Right? Jordan Peele created a masterpiece. The undertones of the movie, the color grading, just all the little foreshadowing moments, obviously the ending. It's unbelievable. And I don't think Psycho's the better movie than it. But you don't Get Out without Psycho. Right? In this psychological horror, Psycho is one of the first of its kind, and it stays relevant to this day because of how good it is. Right? The masterful tension building, that the unease that you get that you don't get from a lot of other movies, even to this day. And then obviously Hitchcock with his camera movements just creates something unnerving, unnatural, and brilliant. Right? You don't Get Out without that. I think a really interesting one as well would be something like monster horror. Because here's the case where I'm going to get into now. Sometimes you just can't recreate a movie. Something like Jaws, sure, it doesn't look the best. Like, even then, people are like, okay, the shark looks fake as crap. But you can't recreate that movie anymore because Jaws is the perfect monster movie in that sense. The kind of comparison I'm giving it is going to be something like Nope. Again, Jordan Peele again might be glazing him. But something like Nope is almost beat for beat the same as Jaws. But that's what makes Jaws just so much better. It's the original, it's classic. You use all the story beats you want without it being overplayed and overused. Like the writing is just fantastic. The tension that you get and where the plot is going, everything is driven in a linear sense. Spielberg is the GOAT for that, I think. And it's you can't beat it. And credit to Jordan Peele, he made a great little monster movie. Fantastic. I loved Nope. But to call it to say that movie is going to turn into an all-time classic would be very, very generous to it, because the all-time classic in that genre, Jaws. Is it anywhere close to Jaws? I don't think so. So that's where all these all-time classics just get the benefit of the doubt for me. They were the first. And I think, to some degree, there's no point in redoing some of these movies. Right? It's so hard to make new modern classics because nothing is new anymore. Right? Like, I talked about Obsession, phenomenal movie because it was fresh, it was original. Have we seen concepts similar to it? Yeah, but never done in that way. So that's what made it so good for us. Versus I just watched End of Oak Street. I liked it. It was fun. Was there a point in making that movie? Yeah. Try to do something new, original, fun, sure. You're not beating Jurassic Park. Okay, that is the perfect dinosaur movie. No matter what you do, you're never going to beat it, in my opinion. Perfect script. The visuals are insane. The score is insane. You're never beating that. It is an all-time classic for a reason. The best of its genre in dinosaurs or sci-fi, whatever you want. But you're not making a dinosaur movie better than Jurassic Park, and I think it's going to stay like that for maybe ever, but at least a long, long time. Very similar, Back to the Future. It does time travel the best you possibly can. I don't really know how you beat that. You can make another time travel movie, but it's always going to be compared to Back to the Future. And in my opinion, because Back to the Future does it first and does it like pretty perfectly, you're not going to beat that. Right? So these all-time classic movies just have an edge already for being the original, being classic, and then just like you have to respect it. You have to respect it. Because there's nothing before that to inspire you and go, you know what? This is like, I'm going to base my movie off of this. There's nothing before it. So you have to respect it. But that's what makes movies like Sinners in the future so special. If you can still find new creative ideas in this kind of industry where everything's been done a million times, then like you just have to applaud it. And that's what is going to make some of these movies just all-timers. Right? All-timers. I think 5 years from now, people are going to go, yeah, Sinners was like that. 10 years from now, Sinners was like that. 20, 30, 40, 50, I don't care. People are going to come back to that movie, look at the I Lied to You scene, still be mind blown. Right? Much in the same way that I was born in 2005, went back and watched a movie from 1968. And when you're watching 2001: A Space Odyssey, you're just like, this is unbelievable. This is great. I think everything in space in that movie is just jaw-dropping, mind-blowing. And that is, again, 60 years from now, or 60 years later. So I think when you have these original ideas in Hollywood, and you can make a good movie out of it, you're just bound to be a classic. Bound to be a classic. And Jane and I talked about this specifically with Disney, but remakes are getting to be an issue because there's nothing new in the industry anymore. Like, as much as I was giving praise to Obsession and Sinners, those are the very few movies that have been original and actually done well. And not to say that there hasn't been tons of vampire movies or kind of genie, wish gone wrong, monkey paw movies with Obsession, but they were fresh, they were original, they were great. Since there isn't a lot of original, fresh ideas that you can do anymore, people revert back into just remaking old films. And for the most part, they just don't work. Because, again, I think Psycho 1998 was a beat-for-beat, shot-for-shot remake of Hitchcock's Psycho. Does it work anywhere close to the same? No. One, because it's not Hitchcock camera. But two, we've already seen it. And if it doesn't have the iconic factor and that kind of nostalgia factor that the original one has, it sucks. Or you kind of get it the opposite way. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies. Those ones from the 80s and 90s, iconic. They have the nostalgia factor. They're fun movies. You get the 2014 remake, it's fun. It looks better, right? It does look better. But it just feels hollow. It feels empty. There's no point in those remakes. And it just goes down terribly. But here's where things get really interesting. Something like Dune or Planet of the Apes. I think the Planet of the Apes trilogy is pretty perfect from a filmmaking standpoint and just from a storytelling standpoint. I know most people won't agree with that. But when you compare it to the original Planet of the Apes, like the newer ones, just miles better. Miles better. And if you don't agree with that, like take off the nostalgic glasses, like get that out of your head. Don't look back at it with rose colored glasses. Be objective and look at it and go, you know what? We no longer just have guys in suits and makeups. This is mocap and CGI, but it looks insane. You know, Andy Serkis doing the mocap for Caesar looks insane. And you can't beat that in my opinion. Like you can't tell me that the original ones, as iconic as it was, the twist at the end, everything, the story's very fun, but you can't tell me that that is better. That alone makes it better than the new ones, where it just looks infinitely better. You know? So, and then, I mean, same with the Dunes. The original one, sure, it was fine. The newer ones, generational. You know? Star Wars isn't necessarily remakes, because obviously it's new movies, but you don't have that. Like, it looks better, but the story's so much worse. So it's kind of the opposite problem. You know, at least with Planet of the Apes, it looks better. The story's around the same, in my opinion. So Planet of the Apes is better, right? Dune, same story, looks a million times better. Star Wars now, different story, different actress, different everything. Looks better, but one, not that much better. Kind of the hand drawn and all of that just looks great to begin with. CG looks more realistic, sure, but the story is just not there anymore. The writing just isn't there anymore. And it kind of like you can't have a classic like the original three Star Wars, the OG trilogy. You can't have that anymore because the soul isn't there. Remakes just kill the soul out of it. And obviously writing issues, like somehow Palpatine Return doesn't help. But it just kills it, you know, kills it. So that's kind of my thoughts on remakes. You know how Jay and I feel about them. But this has also just been my thoughts on movies to begin with, moving forward. You know, all timers are all timers for a reason. They're iconic. They're the first of its kind. They hold up today. Versus these modern movies, man. Like I know a lot of them will just get washed away in the end. I do think a movie like Everything Everywhere All at Once, when it first came out, it was exciting. I personally loved it. Very deserved win at the Oscars. But then every time I rewatch it since then, it kind of just goes and comes down a little bit for me. Yes, it was original, well acted, well made, everything like that. But it just lacks that something for me. You know, so I think in the long, like going into this video, I was very much so pro modern movies. Going, you know what? They look better, they sound better. It's hard to beat them. I would rather watch a modern movie over a classic any day of the week. But after making this video, doing a little bit of research, these classics are classic for a reason. I think the storytelling that you get from them can't be beat. Right? Can't be beat. And sure, they don't look as nice because of you're just limited resources. But come on, you can't deny it. You just can't deny it. They're better stories. Is it the modern era's fault? No, not at all. Right? There's nothing new under the sun. And if you can create something new, very well done on you. But a lot of these movies, like Everything Everywhere All at Once, very good movie, it's going to be washed away. So when you make something like Sinners, like The Odyssey, you have to respect it, you have to applaud it, you have to give it the praise that it does deserve. Something that's going to be remembered like that forever and ever and ever. Because it's so much harder to do that in this day and age. Right? You make a movie like Jaws, which is very simple for the time. Right? Big shark attacking people, we gotta catch it, we gotta kill it. It's so simple. You can't do that concept for the rest of the time moving forward unless you somehow find a way to improve on it or find a new idea, a fresh idea. But that's what's so beautiful about the originals. Right? They're original. So I think when you compare all-time classics to modern classics, it's hard not to give the edge to all time just because They're original. But I think I might be leaning towards modern classics now. Something like a Sinners. Just because when you can create something in this day and age that not even necessarily new, but that is just so good that it's going to be going down as an all-time classic, it's so peak, right? Again, I keep coming back to it, but Sinners. It sounds great, it looks great, it's well acted, well written. Thematically, there's so much going on. It feels full. Not like a lot of movies you get where it's hollow, it's cash grab. It feels full. I think I have to lean more towards that. And I mean, I get the experience of going to watch it in this theater, in the cinema, which does add to a lot of it. But I think you got to start respecting these modern classics a whole lot more than we are. We're going through a renaissance of film right now where in the 2010s and leading into the 2020s, we were getting good movies, sure, but it was really box office driven. That's why we got so many superhero movies and all of that. We're starting to get back into this, let's just make a good movie, right? Let's make a good movie. Something like The Invite. They don't really care how that movie does at the box office. If it performs well, obviously they want it to, then great. But we just want to make art again, right? These old movies were all art. If they did great at the box office, fantastic. But they wanted to make something. That's where we're headed again, and that just gets me so excited for the future of film, right? So to kind of sum up everything I've been saying, which has been a lot, the all-time classics, great for a reason. You know, they're original, they're fresh, but we've got to start respecting these modern classics, man. I'm telling you, we're getting into an era where the films are better again, and these modern films are gonna go down more well regarded than some of these classics. I'm telling you, respect the classics for what they gave us. We don't get anything past it without them, but man, start appreciating the modern ones as they come out too. And that's more or less where I'm going to leave you guys today. I'm leaning on modern movies over classics, which is insane because I'm usually the classics guy here. But you already know, I respect the classics, where we came from. The stories usually are better, but the visuals, the sound, it's too peak to ignore. So that's where I'm leaving you guys. Let me know in the comments whether you think modern movies, modern classics, or all-time classics are better. And yeah, I'm curious. Had this video on my mind for a while now. Jaden's a bum. I'm putting this in here so that if he's editing it, he actually watched the full thing. And yeah, he hasn't seen as many classic movies as me, so he is a bum. This is his test to see if he's watching the video fully. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. Let us know if you want to see more solo videos or more duo Cousins Cut videos, but more to come very soon. Thanks.